All right, welcome to this episode of the Joyful Business Podcast. Today's topic is one of my faves, advocacy, specifically advocacy in divorce, operating from a place that's empowered, right? Because of whose you are. And today's guest is a beautiful sister in Christ, a friend and a client who embodies fierce advocacy for women. I love that. I want to introduce you to Rhonda Noordyk. She's the founder and CEO of the Women's Financial Wellness Center, and she works exclusively with women going through divorce, and she empowers them with financial acumen to make smart financial decisions and to live a happy and fulfilled life post-divorce. She's a CDFA credentialed financial expert, and she's passionate, again, about helping women achieve financial justice and financial wellness. I love those words, okay? She is a sought-after speaker, and she's the host of the Disrupting Divorce Conversations for Women podcast. And I have a fun fact. Rhonda has been a public speaker since the age of 11. We're going to learn more about that. Let's welcome Rhonda to the show.
Hey, Judy, thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
Oh, I love you so much. All right. I got to start with the fun fact. So, where were you speaking at age 11?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just so grateful. I had some amazing mentors in my life
Mm.
and participated in speaking competitions through the Optimist Club in my small town, and then ended up being part of the forensics team in my high school. And then also in college, I did some speaking and debate and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think the key thing here, Judy, is that, at 11, right, I had somebody help me craft a message that when I was delivering this 5-minute oratory, I had the adults in the room tearing up.
Wow. That's no small feat.
No.
That's
And
amazing.
you realize in that moment the gift, the power, the opportunity to impact people for good.
Mm.
And it really impacted me. And so yeah, I mean, my work today, the fact that I get to help and be a voice for women, is so important. And I love being able to build on that, and so grateful for the people that believed in me, in fifth grade.
Yeah. Okay. I got to answer that. I also was in an optimist oratory, whatever competition. I was horrible. I think the topic was, why do you love being an American? And it was just so general. It was just kind of a strange topic. Anyway, I wish, do you have that on film, by the way? That
Oh
would be
my gosh, I wish.
I know, I wish too, right? Okay, how about we come back to your specialty, empowering women through divorce. What brought you to that work?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, where do I even start with that, right? I think it goes back to Judy, like recognizing some of the skills or things that maybe people thought weren't skills as a young kid, right? That being stubborn, that really wanting to make a difference, feeling that you're bringing significance into the world. I mean, I was always an old soul. And part of that was, the growing up and the having a dad who was an alcoholic and all those things that kind of come into that. But doing the work that I'm doing today really started because there was an organization in my town, that works exclusively with women, and it was a healthcare agency that really would walk with them through all the phases of life. And I remember reading that article and learning about that, and that was probably in the late 90s. And I thought, gosh, I wish there was something like that from a financial perspective. And that was really where that seed got planted.
Mhm.
Spent 12 years in the financial industry, building a really successful business with my husband. And then in 2014 decided, you know what, my vision is bigger than what I'm doing here. I need to be able to reach women all over the country and really just do something that was independent of financial product sales or traditional financial planning. And so then in 2014, I left the industry and opened up Women's Financial Wellness Center.
That is so good. Can I land on the word vision? So I strongly believe that in business, the quickest path to your like success is really having that clear vision. Like, what is my mission? Like, what does it look like? So tell me about the vision, how it first even came to be and what it looked like then and kind of where you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I was sitting in my office. I always say, like, I was sitting in the executive office, right? With a great view. No, I was overlooking the parking lot. Oh, but I just remember thinking, what do I want my business to look like 5 years from now? And I had a woman who walked into my office one day and she kind of tossed a business card on my desk and she's like, Rhonda, you need to talk to these people. And I'm like, who are these people that I'm supposed to be talking to? And it was an organization at the time that was called the Think Global Institute. And the Think Global Institute focused on helping women entrepreneurs take their businesses to the next level. So I applied. They had gotten some corporate funding. I was able to go through this program at no out of pocket cost to me.
Mm,
And they said, as long as you can commit to a 3 hour one-on-one with the CEO and a 8 hour group session once a week for the summer, you're accepted. And I was like, I don't even know what to say. I mean, there was just this gift,
yeah.
right? That God just literally dropped on my lap. And I was like, heck yeah, I'm in. And I had spent the summer with some really amazing entrepreneurs here in the greater Milwaukee area. And during that time, we explored, what is your vision? And I said, I want to create a safe space for women that they can learn about money, that they can become empowered, and that they can really make a difference, right? Leave a legacy and things like that. Well, in talking through that conversation, the CEO says to me, Rhonda, I think that your big vision is bigger than where you are now. And I think if you really want to build this thing out, I think you're going to have to leave the financial industry, let those licenses go, follow your vision and move over here and build, right? And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. I can't hear that. I worked too hard for those licenses. Like, no. And so I spent the summer seeking out office space and doing a lot of things behind the scenes. And I finally then decided to share with my colleagues that I was going to be leaving. And I will say it was a very challenging 4 weeks that I was there. They all thought I had gone crazy. They were like, how is this girl ever going to make any money? The train's gone off the tracks. She's gone crazy. We don't even know. Right. So I spent and so I remember the CEO of that company, of the firm, coming in and being like, Rhonda, what is going on? And I'm like, well, shut the door and I'll share with you. And I had a vision. And I said, here's what I'm going to do. And she was like, Rhonda, I get it.
Mm, good for her.
And it was powerful because and then of course, right, fast forward, I leave, I open my office, I rent office space for about 2 years. I end up then purchasing office space. So my building that I was in, you could rent or you could condoize it, like you could buy it.
Mhm.
So I bought a 4,000 square foot um, conference center with a stage that held 1,000 people, and we would do speaking, engagements. And
Wow.
I mean, it was amazing.
Mm.
Got two equity partners that were part of that deal. I had never done anything, nothing like that, right? So we do the open house for that space, and guess who comes?
Mm.
My
The
old
CEO?
colleagues
Yeah.
who said, oh, Rhonda, we always knew you were really smart. We always knew that you were really great at business. And I'm thinking, that was not the
Not the
message.
vibe. Yeah. Yeah.
Was not the message or the vibe that I got, in working with them. But they were like, "Holy smokes, you've got a kick butt business plan." I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And it was really great. And then a couple years later, I sold that space. And this is an important part of the vision, Judy, is that I had two equity partners who were really good friends of mine, who said, "We believe in you. We'll invest, a total of 10% into this space." Got an SBA loan, went through this whole thing, did it all myself with having the right team of people, right? I'm like, can't have the noise. I need to come in, right, and make sure that, hey, help me learn this process, right? So anyways, long story short, at the beginning of COVID, I sold my space and made a profit. And I was able to deliver checks to the two women whose businesses had flatlined because they were doing corporate training or working with businesses as they were trying to regroup. And I'll tell you, you know, I'm so glad that I took the risk. I'm so glad that they believed in me, that I had an opportunity to give back to them. I mean, that sustained them during a period of time when they literally had no business coming in, because anything that they had on the books, nobody was doing virtual training. If you didn't weren't
Right.
doing in-person training, I
Mhm.
mean, or anything you had in the pipeline that was going to close, see in a couple years.
That is just amazing. Okay, so I wrote that down and I highlighted it. I'm so glad I took the risk. Ladies listening or watching on YouTube, let that be maybe a message from the Lord to you. Take the risk. Entrepreneurship is risky business, but wow, the payoff when you are expectant that the Lord's going to move because you're on mission, you're fulfilling your vision. Hallelujah. That is such a great story. All right, let's talk about advocacy. Okay, so I know advocacy is central to your work. And I I looked up the definition of advocacy and then I'm like, I don't like that definition, so I have my own. But before I share that, I would really love to know your definition of advocacy and why is that so central to what you do?
Yeah. So, one of the big questions I often get is, Rhonda, why do you work with women that are going through divorce? Right. And in doing that soul searching and really trying to determine, what is it that energizes me? Why do I do this work? One of the questions that I asked myself was, what do I hate? And I hate abuse. I hate abuse. I hate people being taken advantage of. I hate, and that is really, I think, at the end of the day, the reason I do the work I do, because I hate seeing women being taken advantage of. I don't like the financial abuse that I see happening, and I want to be part of the solution.
Mm,
Um,
so
and that's really the key.
yeah, and I love your work. I'm going to get into that more in detail in just a second, but I want to give you my definition of advocacy. To work on another's behalf, fiercely looking out for and defending their best interests. So there's
Mhm.
like this, I'm defending, but I'm also like, that's why I love what you do. You're empowering them, you're looking out for them, and you're helping them to anticipate and look ahead and gain the confidence to raise their voices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anything you want to add to that, like the what you do even more specifically in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on, right? I mean, absolutely, that's what I'm doing like every single day, right? Is the women that have felt like they didn't have a voice or that they weren't smart enough to handle the finances or, that their attorney's not listening to them or
That's huge.
whatever.
That's huge.
It's huge, you know?
Yeah. And so here's the thing, and then I want to jump into something different, but let's stay here for just a second. Women that aren't lawyers like me, and they're not financial experts like you, they could be really smart, but they have never really had to stand up for themselves, whether in business or even otherwise, right? And some would say, well, they've had a cushy life. Well, maybe, maybe not. But the point is, at this point, they're emotionally charged. Everything seems out of control. And they often put a lot of stock into their attorney. And they think, well, I just can trust the attorney. So, for anybody in that situation, can you briefly talk about why the attorney can't be the one person that you need a team? And we're going to get into your bridge process in just a bit, but speak to that. Like the attorney is not the only person on your team. You just can't do that.
Yeah. So I have really come to the conclusion that everybody that is contemplating or going through divorce needs an essential team. And really, I always say, it's kind of like we're all reading out of the same hymnal, but somebody's going to be singing soprano and somebody's singing alto and somebody's singing bass. And that's really where I think the legal and the financial and really the emotional, the coaching, the therapeutic component, comes in. And I'm just looking at things from the, the financial lens, and they're looking at things from the legal lens. And then when we can partner, right? Ideally, we're working together, we're bringing holistic solutions to the table, and ultimately, I believe that the outcome for the clients is better. Um, the attorneys can't give financial advice, and I can't give legal advice, right? But all I know is when I started my business 10 years ago, I had so many people that said to me, "Hey, where were you 10 years ago, 20 years ago when I was going through divorce? Because I really could have used somebody like you."
Mhm.
And that was just, again, that little bit of encouragement that you need early on to keep going. Like, oh my gosh, there's just something to this. And very few people were working in this space. I mean, it was literally 10 years ago when I started, it was you had your attorney and that was it because there was no other option.
Mhm.
And we've
Yeah.
been able to, navigate through that.
Yeah. I mean, and when I'm going to switch to something else, but when we come back, I just want to give one practical example of why you need to advocate for yourself, even with your own attorney. But I just want to switch for just a moment. You and I have been working together for about 6 months now. You jumped into my Joyful Scaling Mastermind, and we had been kind of following each other for a while. So, would you briefly kind of talk about where were you before we started working together, and your experience inside?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I have always felt that having a coach of some kind, right, is always helpful as an entrepreneur because let's face it, it can be lonely, right? If nothing else, it's lonely. And I know that I've got great ideas and I know that but sometimes you need a sounding board. Sometimes you need a different perspective. Sometimes you need somebody who's going to challenge you in some of these areas. And so for me, you and I had connected through a mutual connection. Yeah, probably about a year before I had done the mastermind. And I liked what I was seeing. But I was in another program and I really felt like, okay, I got to finish this one, whatever. Plus, I had gone through some challenges with my business that really I just didn't feel like I had the bandwidth to take on, anything else. So I
Mhm.
completed that engagement, which really helped launch the Bridge program. And I completed that kind of assignment, if you will, that engagement, that opportunity. And I took a little time to kind of regroup. And then I was like, okay, what's next? And so I'm always looking at, okay, for me as a business owner, as a CEO, what's the next best thing I can be doing for my business? And I felt like the next best thing was to reach out to you. And of course, right, like, okay, I've got a lot in order. I've got a lot. I don't know everything, but I've got a lot in place. And I was looking for somebody who was going to challenge me because you and I both have strong personalities, which is great, right? We're go getters, we're advocates. And I needed somebody who was going to say, okay, Rhonda, yes, or will you consider this? Or tell me more about that and get me to start thinking through some of the things or the decisions that I was going to be making. And I have felt that it's been a really great partnership. I mean, I see it as a partnership. You're invested in my business. You're invested in seeing me be successful. You're partnering in prayer when I get stuck in my head,
Yes, for sure. We all do.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, Judy, that I will say is that maybe there's people that are listening that have been through group programs, and I'm going to get emotional,
Mm,
that they feel like they were sold something,
mm,
or they feel like the people that had said that they were going to do something didn't show up and do it. And as somebody who over the years has trust issues because of my upbringing, to have somebody that I know that if you said you were going to do something, you not only did it, but you over delivered.
mhm. Hallelujah.
And I want to thank you for that
Mm.
because you're reinstilling that you're giving us hope, right? Because
I
that's how
love
I operate
you.
my business. Like,
Mm,
if
mm,
I say I'm going to do something, it's not, oh, yeah, I said I was going to do it, but I'm not going to. If I tell them I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Amen. That's so good. Listen, I love you so much, Rhonda. And I just so appreciate that because what I see going on in the coaching space disgusts me. And that is everybody's just chasing the dollars and they're just hiring underlings under them. Oh, well, you want to work with me? I'm sorry. When you come in, you're not paying enough to work with me. You're not paying me to get my brain and my heart on your business. You're just going to have to work with somebody else. And I will never do that. So one of the things you and I talked about is like that high touch and you and I strategizing back and you push back a little bit. And I think that's really awesome. So talk a little bit about like the practical you and me actually like, even though it's in a group setting,
Yeah.
us being able to really, go back and forth, you and me.
Yeah. So one of the things that stands out, and of course, when you've spent time together, there's a lot of different things I could address. But the one thing that stands out for me is the pushback that we were talking about the webinar, right? And you had implemented a new two-step process for your webinar. And I had spent a year working with another coach and working on my webinar, and it was falling flat. It was not working. And you said, Rhonda, I want to challenge you. Would you consider doing a two-step? And I'm like, Judy.
Remember this.
Like, you don't understand. Like, I'm almost at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this one more shot. Okay. But I'm telling you, I want to give up. And you said, okay, let me help you. So you gave me the slides, you gave me the framework, right? And I started working with it and I was putting stuff together. And then you and I hopped on a call and we walked through it. and you tweaked it and you watched it and you gave me feedback and we tweaked it. And finally, we got to the point where you're like, okay, I think this is good to go. Is it perfect? No, but
No,
it's really good.
it's very good.
So we went from this one step, like, process to a two-step model, and we're getting eyeballs on the mini course. We're getting people that are signing up for the bonus training. And we're working on tweaking to get even more conversions by doing different landing pages and really kind of taking it to that next level.
Mm,
But it's working, even on a small scale, that now we can grow that.
amen.
And I'm so grateful.
Mm. I remember, you know what? This is what a good coach does, because I did take a moment and pray, Lord, I really want to push. Shall I? And it was like, go. And now, aren't you just so happy? So, so good. All right. One more thing that I wanted to elaborate on is I want you to talk just for a second about, you said yesterday when we were chatting that there's strategy, but there's holistic strategy in the way I approach that, and the whole thought leadership, and the fact that I give you everything, templates, spreadsheets. I give you the Canva template. Like, just speak a little bit to that, because I don't believe that happens much, if at all, in other programs, no matter how much you pay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, let's be real, right? I mean, we've all been part of programs in some level where they give you something, right? I mean, it's not that I haven't gotten templates in the past, but the difference with this was I got the template that you felt like was going to work for me. It wasn't just I'm giving the same template to every single person. No, you might share it with other people, but it was intentional for my where I was at and what I needed, number
Mhm.
one. And number two, you gave me feedback. So it's one thing for me to do it, right? But it's another to get the feedback from you to say, okay, yeah, what about this? Or can we tweak this just a little bit? Or, this part's really great. We don't need to do anything with that, right? So that was the piece that I think was missing. Like there was still an opportunity for me to have some, as part of the mastermind, one-on-one time with you to get some of that feedback. And then of course the group stuff as well. So I felt like for me personally, I need that hybrid, the consistency of having a group program plus saying, okay, yes, and let's dive a little bit deeper. And that's where you can have those conversations around, listen, Judy,
Right,
help
right.
me because I'm struggling with this. And you can be a little bit more vulnerable, I think, even more so one on one.
Yeah, for sure. And last thing I want to say is, when we came together in November and we were doing long-term strategic planning, the neatest moment, I think, of those entire couple of days together was as you were looking at your 3-year plan and like seeing the numbers. And there was a little bit of, oh my gosh, how much am I going to make? Or how much? And I said, wait a minute, like just wallow in that, lovely that you're planning, but at the same time, if the dollars scare you, just think about the impact. Don't even worry about the dollars, just look at the impact, and you're like, oh my gosh, talk about that. Like, that seemed to be like a huge breakthrough.
It was a huge breakthrough. Like many business owners, right? You have these milestones, right? You want to get to maybe it's the break even point, and then you want to get to the six-figure mark, and then you want to get to the multi six-figure mark, and then you want to get to the seven-figure mark. And so I'm at that point where I want to cross the seven-figure mark, right? And as I was crunching the numbers and looking at, what of the levers that I have going on could we pull to kind of do that? And as we crunched the numbers, you're right. The thing that I realized was, in order for me, like in helping the amount of people that I want to help and the lives that I want to impact, um, that was easier for me to get my head around than like, holy smokes, if I do that, then what? Like it was a lot for me to take in, because I think what I was doing before was I was saying, okay, here's the goal dollar wise, right? And how do I back into it? What we did was we said, what is the impact? And oh, by the way, so it was a paradigm shift and a big one, a big one at that. Yeah.
I love that, and thank you for being so vulnerable to share that. And the last thing I'll say on all of that is, it is Christ at the center. I'm constantly pointing you back to Christ, right? And
Hmm.
also the whole, like, that those paradigm shifts of, wait, I'm looking here and I should be focusing there, and let the impact just do its thing. And it was just such a, I mean, everybody in the room was crying. It was amazing. All right. Thank you for that. Now let's go back And let's talk about real quick example of why a woman cannot just trust blindly the attorney to ask the right questions and negotiate on her behalf.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think there's a couple things, and I love acronyms, right? So one of the things that we often see that happens in the divorce process is what I call the damn method, right? And primarily because I've got the bridge, so we were kind of playing off of that. But anyways, what it means is that the parties dodge the disclosure, they avoid getting assets valued, and they misrepresent information. And really, at the end of the day, people will say, well, yeah, but Rhonda, isn't that part of the process? Isn't that what they're supposed to be doing is discovering and disclosing? Yeah. And what if they don't do it? Right. And so we've had to have some very specific strategies around the financial side. And one of the things that I have said for the last probably year that I've continued to see come true is the numbers, right? The output in the calculator or the output in the spreadsheet is only as good as the numbers we're putting into the calculator. And so if your spouse is not being transparent, right, you as the spouse that maybe hasn't been as involved in the finances is walking away and leaving stuff on the table. And that's part of our mission statement is, one woman at a time, we are going to reduce the number of women whose lifestyle goes down 41%, after divorce is over. And so tying into that, I think is important. The other thing is just because somebody is an attorney doesn't mean they're going to advocate. So the other quick takeaway I want to share is my CIA method, which is I want them to make sure that the attorneys have good communication. Like they actually will respond to emails or phone calls within a reasonable period of time. They're not trying to chase them down. Integrity and advocacy. Are they truly going to advocate for you? And I know we've spent some time talking about that, but we can't assume. We have to ask really good questions to make sure that they are going to be a good fit for our specific, situation.
It's so good. And if I can just, I know we're running out of time, but I want to give this real life example. The financial disclosure in divorce is the most important document you will fill out. And so the attorney is just like, okay, fill it out, fill it out. But they don't understand the import and they may not be forthright enough or the opposite of lazy, aggressive enough to say, hey, what about this? And what about that? Your the spouse didn't complete this. So you need someone like Rhonda who's going to teach you like what you don't even know. Like, I don't know what I don't know, right? This is why you go to Rhonda. All right. So talking about that free mini course that we were talking about, I understand you are going to be sharing that with our listeners. So
I
tell us.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yay, they'll be able to see kind of what, we worked on putting together, which is great. But the mini course is really designed to give people 6 kind of key steps to getting a fair financial settlement. And I know that's not a popular thing to say, but Rhonda, it's not fair. Well, you know what? All I can say is my process works. Like, been able to help lots and lots of women, thousands, in fact, and we've been able to move about $22 million into the hands of women that otherwise would have been left on the table. So having done this for 10 years, right, it's been so great because you test and measure and test and measure and test and measure, and you get a process that works, and we're just going to follow it until it doesn't work anymore. And it's working. So yeah, so they'll be able to know a little bit there. And if they want to do a deeper dive and look behind the curtain at the bridge method, they certainly can opt in to the bonus training as well. And we can share a little bit more there as well.
That's amazing. You do amazing. $22 million. That's insane. Really. I just applaud you for the work that you're doing. It is so important, not only for the women, but for the children and the future generation. So brava, sister. Thank you for all of the hard work that you do. All right. So where can our listeners, besides getting that access to the mini course, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram at Rhonda Noordyk is probably the best place. I also have a podcast called Disrupting Divorce Conversations for Women. So on all the major channels there as well.
Awesome. All right. Any last word of wisdom that you want to either share that's new or emphasize?
Yes, absolutely. I just want to encourage, right, your listeners that as entrepreneurs, as women of faith, right, to take those risks and to surround yourself with people that have walked through some real challenging situations, right, that have overcome some of those things so that we can help you do the same. So just really a word of encouragement. You're smart, you can do it. Partner with the right people, and yeah, let's go make a difference.
Amazing. Thank you, Rhonda. I knew this would be a great episode. Thank you, ladies, for listening, and we'll see you next time.